So, I've been maining Ayaka and Ryden for 2 years now. Yep, I've been using them and pretty much only them for every single abyss since I got them. I'll also talk about Yoimiya, even though I only recently started using her again. I just wanted to talk about my experiences with these characters, some common criticisms I see online, as well as some misconceptions. I'll try my best to be as unbiased as possible, but take what I say with a grain of salt, because I very obviously love these characters a lot. Hopefully I can help you come to a decision on who you want to pull. So, since her banner is coming up first, let's talk about Ayaka. I see a lot of people saying she fell off, which I don't think is necessarily incorrect. Now, she's still very strong and has more than enough damage to clear Spiral Abyss with full stars. But she has some very obvious flaws which prevent her from being the best. First off, she takes a lot more skill than some of the other top DPS characters right now. Characters like Alhaitham and Nuvolets are just a lot more easy to use. But I think with an ideal matchup, Ayaka can perform similar to them. Consistency can also be an issue, with some enemies being straight up unfreezable or just difficult to group correctly due to the stagger. Learning timing and positioning with Ayaka is extremely important. Knowing when to use your burst can make all the difference in your clear times, and not everybody is willing to do that. If that is you, then Ayaka might not be for you. Some people just want to turn their brain off and clear Spiral Abyss without really trying too hard. I also think that's the reason why her usage rates have gone down. People just found other characters that can do similar numbers with half the effort. In short, I think you should only get her if you like her playstyle or her character. She used to be one of the best pre-Dendro, which is why people were more willing to overlook these flaws. If you are still willing, however, you will find that she is still a very strong character, especially in AoE chambers. She can even be used against bosses if she's decked out enough. She also got a new team with Farina's release, which can be competitive with her premium team. I personally still prefer the Shenhe variant of this team because the Farina team has some issues with VV setups that can be a bit of a pain. But if you have Farina and Charlotte, plus an Anemo, this team is still a more free-to-play friendly alternative. No Shenhe needed. Now lastly, let's talk about constellations and weapons. For my Ayaka mains that might be thinking about constellations. In my experience, getting Mist Splitter made a huge difference for me, and I think that should be your #1 priority. Even though her C2 and C4 are really good, her C1 is just straight up garbage. I myself am considering getting C2, but I'll probably stop there. I honestly think C0 R1 is strong enough, with C2 being reasonable for the bigger AoE, if not the coolness factor, right? C4 is a bit overkill, but nonetheless still very strong. Now, let's move on to Ryden, the Electro Mommy herself. Sorry, Lisa. Now, I will put a big disclaimer here. My Ryden is C3 R1. It has been since Sumeru. I skipped almost all the Sumeru 5 stars to save enough, and it was worth it. Ryden is my F this shit character. If some BS boss that I despise is in Abyss, I pull out Ryden and her Booba sword and absolutely wipe them out faster than she did her own friends. Anyway, I have some experience with C0 Ryden, but it has been a while for me. Hyper is definitely off the table for C0. It used to be fine, but she has way better teams now that you can use at C0. Rational, while not an amazing team, it is still very easy to play, and it's what I've been using with her for the longest time. The single target damage with this team is exceptionally high. I've never been a fan of Raiden Hyper. Your Ryden either does too much damage and she kills the enemy before you can get all your energy, or you get unlucky with crits and the enemy has like 1/3 of their HP pool left. You're then forced to use your burst again, since no one else in the team actually does damage. You then risk starting the next chamber or wave with no burst, which can be very awkward to say the least. I've had a way better time replacing Sara with Fischl, having a sub DPS that can actually do damage while also generating more particles and having better elemental application. Sounds like a good deal to me. And especially with her new artifact set, the damage difference between her and Sara is not that big. But my favorite team with Ryden is actually the one you're seeing on screen right now. It's like a better rational with none of the drawbacks. No knockback from Overload, no circle impact with Bennett, and not having Pyro on you all the time is a nice bonus. If you haven't yet, I suggest you give this team a try. I think this can be used with a C0 or a C2 plus Ryden. Very, very easy, very brain dead, and has very good single target damage. Now you, yes you in the back, I see you talking about the forbidden EM Ryden build. I absolutely despise this build and I refuse to entertain the idea of ever using it. But if you want to, I suppose I can't stop you. I don't really have any experience with this build, so it's up to you. Now please leave my channel and never come back. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about getting C2 Ryden. And my answer to that question is yes, I think you should. It makes her the best carry in the game with the most flexibility. I've used her in every single abyss and she makes everything an absolute cakewalk. If you too wish to experience true godhood, then do it. It is honestly an amazing experience and a very, very good power trip. But I do, however, think that there are better constellations in the game, like Farina C2 for example. This constellation is just stupid. I mean, look at this crap. It gives you so much. C2 Nahida is also better, I think, in a lot of ways. These constellations are team-altering constellations, whereas Raiden C2, although it is very strong, it's only for herself. As for Engulfing Lightning, I'll be honest. The main reason I got this is so that I can use Catch on Xiangling. Yep. It's a good weapon, but I think C2 takes a higher priority here. And on the way, you'll also be able to snag C1, which is not a bad constellation in of itself. Lastly, let's talk about Yoimiya. I got Yoimiya on her first banner by pure luck. I had no pity with a 50-50 and she came home in my first temple. My motivation to use her wasn't very high, since I just got Raiden and Ayaka not too long before. They were just better for me. It wasn't until much later in some dry patch that I finally decided to build her. And meh was my reaction. I didn't like her playstyle, her damage was lacking. She has a cool design though and a sick animations, but ultimately I abandoned her. Until recent. I got Zhongli as well as Yelan, and these two made a huge difference for me. Zhongli surprised me. I was very dismissive about the idea of using a shielder. But I learned that not being interrupted is very important with Yoimiya, especially if you're playing Vape, like I am. Your ICD will get messed up and the wrong attacks will vape. It can lead to huge damage losses. I have no idea how people use Yoimiya without a shielder. It feels like she is made of paper and a leaf falling on her will interrupt her combo. It's less important if you're playing something like Mono Pyro, but I would still find room for a shielder. Restarting your combo is not a pleasant experience. My favorite team with her is the one on screen right now. It's comfy and very hard to screw up. This abyss in particular is very good for Yoimiya, since the one side is entirely bosses. So if you have her and you haven't given her a shot yet, I suggest you do. This is one of the best abysses that she has had in a long time, perhaps even ever. But yeah, I don't have as much experience with her as the other two, but my overall opinion on her is you should only get her if you like her. She is single target only, which really limits her use cases. Pyro also isn't in the best spot right now, and there are better units than her. Specifically Hu Tao and Xiangling. Most of the people that use Yoimiya do it because they dislike Hu Tao's playstyle and her reliance on C1. If that is you, then feel free to get Yoimiya. Unlike Hu Tao though, Yoimiya's constellations are not very good. They're fine, but I wouldn't recommend them unless you really like them. Getting Thundering Pulse, I think, is a better investment. Although R5 Rust is also not too far behind with her. Okay, that is going to be the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching this awful video. I will now leave you with my builds and see ya.